Hello, hello, folks. How are we doing tonight? This is your co-host Sawyer Reed. I'm joined here tonight with Mr. Avery Kearney.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Discombobulated. We're happy that you're listening, and we're just as happy to be here as well.
Absolutely. It's been wrapping up a nice little weekend here, and it's starting to feel fully like fall.
Yeah, we finally got some sun today, too.
Yeah, I know that was a nice change of pace. It's been kind of crummy
For
lately.
I swear, a week straight, all we had was rain and clouds and darkness.
Yeah, it's been
Kind of like my soul.
it's getting real gloomy in here and out there. But you do anything fun this week to counteract this impending winter?
I had a productive week, like school-wise. I got a lot of stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good weekend. Hung out with some close people. Just kind of laid low. Productive week, laid low on the weekend. That's kind of my ideal situation.
Yeah,
so
I'm
I
with
can't
you there.
complain.
Yeah, you kind of grind and then earn a break.
Exactly.
That's how I kind of look at it. Yeah, I went to a little beer tasting thing on Friday.
Nice.
Found some good stuff, so pretty much big chillin'. Did you hear anything about the black hole that might be living a little closer to us than?
I did not hear about it.
Okay, yeah, it's a little concerning. I guess depending on what gives you concern, but for a while now, there's been a thought or theory that there may in fact be a ninth planet in our solar system, and I don't mean Pluto. Sorry to you Pluto apologists out there.
Pluto's a fraud.
Yeah, he was spouting lies for far too long and finally got brought back down to Earth. But there's some unexplained or unaccounted for gravity out in that affects things that are like outer in the solar system, kind of past like where Neptune can reach with its orbit.
So just like abnormal. I mean, I know nothing about space.
Mm-hmm. Basically, the orbits and like gravitational patterns of celestial bodies that are out further in the solar system than Pluto even, and basically like everything that has been brought up in this story is past what Neptune can have a gravitational effect on. Like that's how far away we're talking. There's some things out there that have been making people make a case for a ninth planet.
So there's like gravitational pull coming from somewhere type of thing?
Yeah, there's
for lack of better terms.
There's like icy objects that are organized in ways that like wouldn't make sense without other gravity being out there that we can't see right now. And so for a while now, scientists have been arguing that there may be a ninth planet hanging out, lurking in the depths.
And that's in our solar system?
Yeah.
We're speaking? All right.
Yeah. And I saw some stuff this week that says it's a new theory claiming that this could in fact be a black hole.
So not a planet, but a black hole?
Indeed. For a while now, people have been trying to prove that it's a ninth planet again, since Pluto's been lost as a classification as a planet, and it's never been spotted, this supposed ninth planet, and so some scientists put out a theory that says it may in fact be just a primordial black hole. A primordial black hole is a little different than a standard one. Primordial ones are ones that were created when the universe was created, so it stretches back as far as the Big Bang.
Jeez.
Yeah, and so they're something that have been theorized but never like found out there, and so we might have one lurking right in our backyard this whole time.
How would you go about finding that? You'd have to send people, not people, but something out there to like see it.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they would do it because I mean, this last spring we got the first picture of a black hole ever.
Yeah.
So that might be a technology they could utilize to kind of point that way. But basically there's been an alignment of like icy objects in the outer solar system that originally made people think this was a planet. And now that black hole could be explaining that. And there's another thing that people have long pointed to kind of like be like, well, where's this extra gravity coming from? And that's that the sun and the planets are kind of out of alignment. Like they're not on the same plane. The sun's equatorial plane is actually like 6 degrees off from the orbital plane of all the planets. And that seems kind of funky.
Yeah, there's like what accounts for that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so part of this new theory is proposed that maybe it's not the sun that's out of alignment with the 8 planets, but the sun is true or proper, and that the 8 planets are out of alignment, and this alignment could maybe be due to this black hole.
Black hole.
Yeah, so there's been some cool developments in that, and there's a couple different good stories or articles that have been posted. So if you're into space at all, I highly recommend
some space talk.
Checking it out. It's a little concerning because
the concerns. So as someone that knows very little about space, it's always been kind of over my head. I tend to like not worry about space because I know I just don't understand it.
Nor do I.
So can our planet get sucked into this black hole? Is that the fear?
As someone who also knows very little, that's kind of my fear. I've always, since I was a kid and kind of heard black holes are a thing, I've always been like, well, what if one shows up?
What if we got sucked in?
What if we get pulled into one?
Man, you wake up and the first thing you see is a black hole or something. I don't know. Like you wake up from your nap and next thing you know,
everything's getting pulled to the left.
Man.
And you're like, who turned that song on?
Leaning in reverse really hard.
But, I don't know exactly how colossal a threat it actually is. Because I think with these primordial ones, they behave differently in that they may not fluctuate in size as much. But previously, like, the closest known black hole was like 3,000 light years away from us.
3,000 light years, a nice standard measurement.
That's a hop, skip, and a jump away. That's
quite a bit.
That's got a long time before it could ever do anything to us. So to hear that there's one much closer, potentially, is kind of a little
How much closer?
I think that it's hard to. I'm not exactly sure how many light years.
Yeah.
Or what fraction?
I got so many questions that like what the heck's a light year kind of thing? Like
basically like if the speed of light were to start right here and go west for a year, the distance it covers in that year is a light year.
Okay.
It's so many million miles. I don't know it off top, but so we may have one that's actually thousands or hundreds of millions of miles away as opposed to light years away.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about black holes before we move on is the kind of recently, within the last 10 years or so, the theory's changed as to why galaxies form. And so we have like a known smaller black hole about 3,000 light years away, but 25,000 light years away in the center of the Milky Way is proposed to be a supermassive black hole, as a theory kind of came out in the late 2000s saying that that's actually pivotal for a galaxy to form. So like the Milky Way, the Andromeda, all these galaxies form not by random.
Because there's a supermassive black hole
at the center of every galaxy.
Okay.
People have been looking at lately, and I don't know, it's something that I don't know, I get a kick out of it, but it also scares the hell out of me. Just because no one really understands.
I don't know what to feel about it. I definitely can't say I'm scared. I just am confused and rattled to my core.
That's a good way of being about it, because there's not really much else you can do. Like, no one understands it. There's nothing you can do to change it.
Yeah, there's a lot of topics that I think people worry so much about that, man, you can't control. Try not to get so caught up in it, kind of thing.
I'm with you there.
At least if you don't want it to negatively affect your daily life, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. There's a saying that you should tend to the part of the garden you can reach.
That's sweet. I like that a lot.
And, you definitely can't reach black holes, and even if you could, all you could do is get sucked in. So I'm not trying to by any means rile anyone up or get them worried, but a couple of cool articles came out, and I personally, as someone who's been long confused and thinking about black holes, to have one maybe in our own backyard, I thought was pretty neat.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Well, speaking of massive panic attacks caused by things we can't control, the OPE of the week this week, the Minnesota Wild, dropped down to 0-2, start of the season for the first time since the literal team's creation.
Yeah, when did we come in? 2000?
2001. Yeah, no, we've never gone 0-2. The boys are 0-2. We lost to the Nashville Predators, and then we lost to the Colorado Avalanche last night.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some initial thoughts. The Predators game, we had a lot of like tough bounces, type of plays where the goals were kind of lucky, garbage goals in a sense.
I know what you mean. There was like one goal scored where it was like, okay, that probably should have gone in. You could see it coming. The rest were kind of like, oh, and it wound up in the back of the net.
Absolutely. And then last night, hard-fought loss. We went down early. That's a big problem. We gotta not get down early.
For sure.
And we pulled the goalie, and we had a very good look to tie it. Kevin Fiala had a shot from
3-2.
Like
40 seconds left or something.
Yeah, the right circle in the offensive zone, and all you had to do is raise the puck, and he shot it right in the goalie's pad.
Yeah, it was tough. It was a moving play, but nonetheless, if you score that, we're going to OT. So.
Yeah, and some more thoughts on that. Dumba, I know Soy, you really like Dumba, so why don't you take it away with your thoughts on Dumba's start?
I've been really impressed so far. I mean, 2 games, 2 goals. He's thrown some big hits. Coming off of that injury, you kind of wondered, are we going to get the same Matt Dumba that was playing for us last year, or is it going to be kind of an adjustment period? He hasn't seen game speed action for, 10 months now.
Yeah, man, he's like a total energy guy too. You can tell when he scores, he gets so fired up. And even when if a line mate does something good, even if they don't score or produce anything, he's always fired up.
Oh yeah, he's right there to congratulate him or score a goal, and then when the huddle's coming around him, you can kind of read lips and you see you fucking like that shit?
Yeah, let's go.
I love it, dude. It gets me going, and both his goals have been like, we kind of mentioned the Predators' goals. None of them were really like that earned or pretty looking. Both of his goals have been just shelf.
Yeah, he picked his spot from his spot kind of deal, and it's unreal because the Wild don't have a lot of those kinds of shots, and to see Dumba doing so well so early on, it's promising.
It's encouraging. We just got to get everyone else going on a good start.
Yeah, and if any of you guys followed our second episode, the Wild preview, I talked about, I'll quote myself here, I think that our first line is going to be a consistent line throughout the year. It turns out the second game, the first line got broken up. Zach Parise got brought down to the third line.
He was playing with who, Cunnin and Greenway?
Yes, he was on that line.
That was fun.
Yep, and then Donato got thrown on the first line, which I like. But, it's just kind of funny because we put in all this time. I tried to learn the stats, and I tried to picture scenarios, and I thought that they were going to be super successful.
Yeah, for sure. I did too.
The second the game's over, you see a tweet or you see Bruce Boudreau's interview. I got to switch up the first line. It wasn't working.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of we get some encouragement out of Dumba, but then also they're shuffling the first line.
Yeah.
Second game in.
So you don't want your first line to be shuffled really ever.
No, I mean that should be like your bread and butter.
It's like the most consistent thing you want is a good first line.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado's going to have the same one all year.
Some teams have 2 lines that are
right,
like first lines kind of deal.
Right, and I mean, our second line's been looking a lot better than the first, to be honest, as far as chances go. Like Zucker's been playing like a fiend, just gets those wheels going and gets a lot of breakaways.
Totally.
Fiala's been, he would have really kind of proved me wrong about my skepticism in that Granlund trade had he converted that goal last night and brought it to OT. Yeah. But he's looked pretty good. He's making plays. He's creating space.
He does not finish nearly enough.
No, I'm with you.
He does a lot with the puck, and then he'll lose the puck basically.
Yeah, he'll create a great play, and it's like a 5-step play that would result in a goal, and step 4 or 5. Something will go wrong.
He does too much.
But he'll always get the first 3 right.
Yeah.
It's always, we got something here.
I think he does a little bit too much with the puck, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kind of final notes on the Wild. Eric Stahl, he was quoted after the first loss, and he said, I feel bad for Zuccarello. And, I mean, that's context.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, so context is everything there, as context is everything. I think he was referring to, he thought he was to blame for the goals that he was on the ice for because he was out of position. And he was. So saying he felt bad for Zuccarello, he was saying, I feel bad because I didn't do my job.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
He wasn't saying I feel bad because we suck and he just got traded to our team and I feel bad for him because he's never going to be successful, which is what you could have interpreted that as, and I still kind of do because it's kind of true.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he showed good leadership there, and hopefully he could kind of use his own words as motivation type of deal.
Yeah, for sure. You like to hope.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hopefully he can do that.
we don't play again till Thursday.
Yeah, I saw that. Who we playing Thursday?
The Jets.
The Jets.
So
That's not easy at all.
no, that's what this all boils down to. Is the Wild might have a good team, but this Central Division is stacked like a.
Yeah, man. Imagine playing the Coyotes on a regular basis or a team like that.
Oh man,
That'd be real
sweet.
nice.
Or being in like the Atlantic Division.
Who's in that division?
Nice. Like Panthers.
Yeah.
They're gonna be good this year, but like that whole lower like southeast part of the states would be pretty nice to play some.
This might not be true, but I feel like the Central Division is a lot bigger than a lot of the other divisions too.
Talking like physical stature.
Size, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that might not be true.
Well, I mean, like the Blues, they won the whole thing last year, and they just...
The Jets, there's a team that comes to mind for me. They just hit everything, and they're
Yeah.
fast and skilled, too.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you're definitely onto something there, and I don't know, even Colorado looked big. You know, they've got a couple guys who just eat ice, like McKinnon and Rantanen, but Rantanen's like 6'2", 6'3". He's huge, too. Like, their whole squad's big, and I like that we're starting to get a little bit more size. Like, Greenway's starting to play a little bit bigger.
Yeah, but then you go and sign a guy like Zuccarello, who's 5'8".
It's it just makes you wonder. You like to hope.
It's odd. Yeah. So I was watching the game last night with Jessie, and she kind of just got into hockey this past season, and she even said like, "Wow, the Avalanche this is like beautiful. The plays they're making is like very appealing to watch." And she made the comment that the Wild, it's choppy. It's not the finesseful transitions through the neutral zone, make the cool pass, make the next cool pass.
Yeah, she's onto something. One of my like hallmarks of a good NHL team a lot of times is how they look on the power play.
Yeah, totally.
Because like if you can't get set up or you can't take advantage of the fact that you have an extra man, then I don't know, it's going to be that much harder when it's 5-on-5.
It's tough.
You know, and we gave them a couple too many power plays last night, and they made us pay. They look great just snapping it around out there.
Yeah, they're very finesseful. But yeah, folks, that's the Ope of the week. Look forward to that segment. There's certain things in life that make you go, Ope! And the Minnesota Wild made me go, Ope.
Yeah, both in their performance and perhaps a little bit in our excitement about them.
Yeah, they went open 2. It was not good. Open 2, and they might go open 3, but we'll have to tune in on
let's hope
Thursday.
it's not an Ope for. So, little bit different kind of sporty talk here. Did you happen to catch any of the fights this weekend?
I saw replays. I was not watching, but I saw replays.
Yeah, it would have been hard to catch it live. I think it was in
It was in Australia.
Australia?
Yeah. So
Melbourne.
it was going on like a little bit later than normal. But yeah, it was at a soccer stadium, which is very cool. Sold out soccer stadium in Melbourne, Australia. And it's cool because it was an open roof type of stadium. And imagine how cool that would look from like an aerial view, an octagon, and then like 50,000 people.
Yeah, that'd be crazy because, I mean, a soccer pitch is massive, and to cut that down to just the size of an octagon, I bet that'd be kind of a neat scene from above.
Super cool.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot of good, like, they're obviously good fights. I'm not taking anything away from a professional fighter, but the only big fight was really the main event, and it was Israel Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker for the middleweight belt. Robert Whittaker is the champ, was the champ. He's from Australia. That's why it was a home fight for him.
Oh, okay. A little homecoming?
He's Australian. He's been kind of dominating the middleweight division for a while now.
And what is middleweight?
Middleweight, 185.
185, okay. Okay.
He was defeated by Israel Adesanya in the second round via a technical knockout. It was a left hook that Israel threw and ended up it was a knockout, but they called it a technical knockout because he wasn't like, there's a difference, and I don't really know the difference. You just kind of see it and you can tell.
Is a TKO like where the ref stops it?
Yeah, so the ref jumps in, stops it, but also if you think about it, the ref stops at knockout too.
Yeah, I've always wondered that too, because like you'll see someone will get flatlined and they're stiff and they're down, and like the ref has to stop the guy from keep going.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that it's a hard distinction to make because the highlights from last night, I mean, he wasn't out cold, but he was defending himself about as
Yeah.
much as someone who's
You
flatlined.
know
So
when someone's knocked out, and I think it's more of like a walk-off knockout type of thing than it's a KO.
that makes sense.
But if you hit someone and they fall and then they just are unable to get up, technical knockout.
Okay, I'm with that.
But if they get punched in the face and then they like smash their head against the octagon and they don't move for 3 minutes, that's a knockout.
Or like if they're unable to defend themselves anymore.
Yep, that's a TKO. Yep,
Okay.
cover if you're covering up and you're just not able to defend yourself properly.
I gotta see something. I gotta see
Yep.
work.
Yeah.
And they're just laying there.
My name's Herb Dean. This fight is over. Kind of deal. Some other notes on that. The walkout was super cool. If you have the chance, just Google Israel Adesanya walkout. It was cool. They did like a kind of an old Pride style walkout where his corner was dancing to music, and it was like it reminded me of like a Samoan like soccer or rugby type of thing.
Like an intimidation kind of factor
Yeah, it was
thing almost.
super cool.
It was dope. We should see if we can't retweet that or something.
Yeah, we'll throw it up on the Discombob pod Twitter if you guys would like to see that. And then his celebration I thought was super cool too. He like mounted a fake turret and started shooting it at all the middleweights in the crowd. And then he jumped up on the octagon and he pointed at Paulo Costa, who's probably the guy who's going to fight next. And he pointed at him and flicked him off. And
Ooh, he's calling him out,
And then Paulo Costa got up and was pointing at him too. It was
took
like
some offense.
some WWE stuff. But Israel's such a unique guy. He's a multi-time kickboxing champion. Just a beast. He's so talented, and it's cool because he's a guy that dominated a different martial art than mixed martial arts. He dominated kickboxing, and then he transitioned to the UFC. So he kind of had to learn how to wrestle. He had to learn how to do clinch work. He had to learn how to, defend himself against the fence, octagon control, all this stuff. But when you have that skill set that's so amazing, like he does in kickboxing, you learn that stuff fast. You're a martial artist. Your brain's wired that way.
You have a good foundation to build upon.
And this dude has taken the UFC by storm in the past, 2, maybe 3 years, maybe a little less than 2 years even. I'm not exactly sure his whole timeline, but he has dominated, and he's dominated big names. I mean, his last fight, he beat Kelvin Gastelum, and then he beat Anderson Silva too. Like this is
that's a serious
insane.
resume. He's the one they call style bender, correct?
Yeah, he's the style bender because, as I was just alluding to, he is so good on his feet and kicking and stuff like that, and then he starts to bend the other styles. Nowadays he'll fake shoot a takedown because he's a confident wrestler, and he'll use the momentum from the takedown to throw a knee or something like that. So he's bending all these styles, and they also refer him to that because it almost looks like he's fighting in slow motion, like the Airbender. That's where this Aang, the Airbender, great show, Avatar.
Shout out.
He's able to control all the elements of fighting mixed martial arts and bend them to work for him, and he really does, and it really is something special. And if you're talking smack about Israel, you are missing out on something special because he's like the Conor McGregor minus all the stupid stuff Conor does.
No,
he's a superstar.
No whiskey fueled slapping old men. Or
he's Israel. As far as I know, does not have any assault charges against him.
That's a big leg up. Yeah, it's I remember hearing John Danaher, a kind of brilliant jiu-jitsu mind.
Yeah, he has a PhD in philosophy.
Yeah, that's
pretty
right.
cool.
That is really cool. It kind of explains why he's able to break some of this stuff down so well,
too. Yeah, it's very cool.
But I remember hearing him talk one time about Georges St. Pierre and how he's maybe not to the same level as Stylebender, but he's able to incorporate so many different martial arts together, and that when you do combine them in the right way, it's not like jiu-jitsu equals 1 point, wrestling equals 1 point, kickboxing equals 1 point, and you add them up to 3, and you're like a 3 out of 5 fighter. He was saying it's more like transcendent, where when you add 2 of them together, you don't get 2, you get like 2.5, because you can combine and mix these different aspects of each.
Yeah.
And kind of flow them into each other. And I think Stylebender is a great example of that, where, there some of the moves he does don't exist in any one discipline. You have to mix them to get to the point where you like fake shoot a double leg and then throw a knee,
Yeah. He's very good at that, and it also has to do with his movement too. A lot of guys don't move like he does, and if you don't move like people, you're going to dominate them.
Yeah, exactly. You literally can't keep up.
How do you train for someone that is a total unique fighter?
It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands.
Yeah, fuck, for real, man. And the smoke just happens to be a freaking beast Nigerian fighter. It's cool too. The UFC has 2 Nigerian champions now, which has never happened before, and it's cool to see that country represent.
It is neat. It's cool, and I wonder how much of the kind of globalization of mixed martial arts is due to them having events in Melbourne and Abu Dhabi and things like this.
Yeah, it's definitely a factor, and it's Kamaru Usman, who's the welterweight champ, who's also from Nigeria. He's also similar in Adesanya, and like they're both very articulate, and they're good at selling fights. Usman, he had a bachelor's degree in biology. He was either starting out like medical school or some type of like postdoctorate degree, and he thought he was gonna do that. He wrestled in college, and then he kind of got more serious about training MMA, and he kind of put school down to pursue this thing that he realized that he was ridiculously good at.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you know what they say, if you're good at something, you shouldn't do it for free.
Nope, and they don't. They make stacks of cash.
They do it very, very, very well and get compensated accordingly.
That's what's cool about fighting too, is like these people can make so much money in such short amounts of time. You don't think about that. If you knock someone out in 10 seconds and you're guaranteed 60,000 for showing up and then 60,000 for winning, for example, and that's a good rate.
Yeah, if you break that down to a by hour basis and you only had to work for 10 seconds, you're looking at some pretty fine numbers.
You're looking at a lot of cash.
Oh,
straight cash, homie.
Stacking.
It'd be cool to look at other sports, like break it down by like how much money they're making like per like minute in a game or something.
Yeah, I know. I remember
because I've never seen that before.
There's some stuff I've seen, like Miguel Cabrera when he's signed with the Tigers, just a massive, massive contract, and they did it on like a 4 at-bats per game basis, where if he pays every game in his contract, he would make $50,000 an at-bat.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Can you imagine? That's my whole year and then some.
Yeah.
At my job, in something that could be 1 swing, or if it's tough, it's 10 swings.
10 swings, and that's like a minute and a half.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we were talking about Kirk Cousins, me and my dad, and we mentioned like my mom was, I feel bad for him because that's what she said, because a lot of people are hard on him, and I'm like, he probably makes like $25,000 every time someone talks shit about him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you get $84 million guaranteed, I'm sure it does break down to something like that.
Like every time someone tells him he sucks on Twitter, he made $10,000 the second he read it, even if he reads that stuff.
Yeah,
you can't feel. Yeah, I mean,
you can feel bad that it's not going well, but
yeah, and you could feel bad for him as a person. Like people are, it's not nice to put people down, but he signed up for it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna nationally televise every time you work, you have to be all right with a little bit of critique.
And he is. I actually like Kirk a lot. He's very. I keep saying the word articulate, but he's an articulate guy. And he has a podcast too. It's called Under Center with Kirk Cousins. And
I've seen clips.
After every loss, every win, he goes on there and he talks about what went wrong, what went right, and that's cool.
That is really neat.
He
That's
owns
a cool
up to
way
everything.
to. I do like he's pretty accountable, and stuff like that's pretty neat, and it kind of shows a little bit of personality out of him, and I like that kind of stuff. But with things like professional sports, it's all about a result, and so even if he is a nice, cool, well-spoken guy who gets along with people for the most part, if he can't hit a 10-yard out route, people will freak out.
I think that's the way with everything. It's all about the end result. You could you could talk all you want, you could do whatever you want, but at the end of the day, it's about taking actions and owning up to them.
The intent doesn't really matter so much as the result,
Nope.
which kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing because I think intent matters a lot.
I do too, and it's something you don't really ever get any kind of inklings about too. You have to, like, when something goes really wrong or really right, it's kind of just like boom, snap of the fingers, and it went right or went wrong. You don't get to kind of hear like, oh well, I was hoping it would have gone like this, and this was supposed to happen, and then blah 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 blah. You kind of just end up like
Doesn't matter.
frustrated that it didn't work out.
Yeah. And also, no one cares.
Or like 2-3 years from now, when NHL fans are talking about whoever wins the Stanley Cup in the 2023-2024 season, they're gonna look back at the Blues, and it's just another bunch of names on the cup. You know, they're not gonna think about like mid-season being dead last. They're not gonna think about hearing the song Gloria in a bar from a guy who sells jewelry. They're not gonna think about Layla. Like
our little chinchilla, right?
Yeah.
Is that what
Boris?
it was? Boris, the
Yeah.
chinchilla? Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to remember the intent and like all the good stuff that got put into it. They're just going to remember the cup.
And
had they lost, no one would remember any
anything
of it.
I was actually trying to think the other day who they played in the finals, and I couldn't even remember. And then I remembered it was the Boston Bruins. But for a while, I didn't know who I thought it was.
Yeah.
I totally
Sharks
forgot.
Or something. Or like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy how that works. And I don't know. Do you think, I don't know, would it help soften the blow when things go wrong or don't work out if you kind of knew more about what the intent was behind it? Or like what you were hoping or why you went the certain route, or does it just sting regardless of what? Like,
I think it's circumstantial.
Okay.
This is like a very like overarching like philosophical question of intent.
Pretty broad strokes here, but
if we're talking, man, I got to think about this for a second before I start spewing out words.
That's fair.
So intent matters, but yeah, as we said, man, at the end of the day, it's what happens. And I think a lot of the times, if your intent is well informed and well executed, you should get that result. So if your intent is right, it probably is going to work out right, maybe.
Yeah, I feel you there. It's just kind of tough because, like, bringing it back to Kirk, you know, like, he wants to win. We want him to win. We'll give you $84 million. Win. And then it doesn't happen necessarily. It's like, well, we did all we could. It just didn't happen, you know?
Yeah, so intent doesn't matter there. But also, you got to think about the individual. Like we said, Kirk's a person, and he has his own private life, and you don't know what's going on in his private life, and he definitely doesn't like want you to know what's going on in his private life. But it's an interesting concept. Do you think that we truly have privacy? Is privacy a thing that we want to have? Is privacy a thing that we're guaranteed in this life? What are your thoughts on the concept of privacy?
It's it goes deep, you know, and it's one that kind of brings up some feelings of concern for me, because it kind of seems like, and I'm pretty young, so I don't have a ton of like baseline experience to base it off of, but it kind of feels to me like privacy is becoming almost like a commodity that can be bought and sold. Like your browsing history, your location, the kinds of orders you make, the kind of things you Google, like where you put, like what kind of addresses you put into your navigation app. All these things are like, you know, it's information that
literally does get like bought and sold by companies.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't know. We don't get to like be the ones that sell it.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because if we're referring to companies kind of selling like our metadata or stuff like that, we did agree to selling it when we signed up for the website.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't read you did.
You kind of click the box that says I accept terms and condition and hit next with almost everything you use, but it's crazy to think that kind of stuff is in there. You know, I think a lot of people are like, ooh, 1,200 pages in an Apple user terms and conditions agreement. I'm going to just scroll, because what could really be in there? They're going to take my phone if I blah, 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 blah. Like, no one looks. So it is partially on us for sure. But that's just kind of the first thing that comes to my mind when you bring up privacy or privacy if you're from certain areas. Do you think it's, I mean, what are your kind of broad strokes thoughts on privacy? Is that something we have a right to? Is it something you feel is like impeded on ever?
Yeah, I want to go back to what you were talking about a second ago with kind of we were talking about social media companies and stuff like that selling your data. And at one of the classes I took at the U of M Law School, we were talking about privacy essentially, and it was cases around the time of when the internet first came out and terms and conditions were a thing.
Okay.
There were all sorts of legal battles going on because, you know, it makes sense. It was a new thing. Companies didn't know what was proper and as far as terms and conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all sorts of different lawsuits you can read about where companies that had where you just kind of click the checkbox and say you read it versus having to scroll through them and click it.
Get to the bottom before you can even...
Yeah, and then there was also websites that had, you know, on the bottom of your website, you have terms and conditions, and it's a link, and whenever it clicks it, so there's all sorts of different parameters.
Different ways to kind of present the
And
terms.
it was established that your best bet legally, if you're a company with terms and conditions, is you're going to want to make the person using it actually scroll through it all and then click the box and then click confirm.
Okay.
Rather than having not to scroll or having it kind of tucked away in your website. And I thought that was an interesting thing legally because they had to figure this out in time. But then overarching, do we have a right to privacy? No, I don't really think so. And if we're talking like...
It gets weedy because it's like, what kind of privacy are we talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a public and private life. I think, yes, there is. But even you think of your most private thing in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe like when you're sitting in your room by yourself kind of deal, you expect to be private, but...
I guess that, or like bathrooms, maybe something kind of like that. Like,
yeah. So if you live on a public street, right, and someone could be staring at you the entire time you're sitting in your room or your bathroom, and they can be doing that.
Yeah, they're on, like you said, public sidewalk, public street,
and then
driving by in their car.
Yeah, man. And as far as legally privacy, it's not necessarily listed in the U.S. Constitution. If we're talking like your legal right to privacy, there are amendments that allude to privacy. You know, the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search and seizures, that implies you have some sort of privacy, but it's also kind of up to the almost subjective whim of what is, as we talked about in episode 1, what is reasonable, what is an unreasonable search look like.
Yeah, it depends who you're asking.
And even if you believe it's unreasonable and the cop doesn't, that's kind of all that matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for real. It's a big subjective thing, and you know, like if you were allergic to peanuts, is that something you'd want to keep private? Like, that's like medical information, but it's also stuff you kind of share with people because you don't want to encounter peanuts. You know, like you can't, like my mom can't call my doctor and follow up about like a surgery unless I've given like permission or whatever, because of like legal privacy regarding healthcare information is a big one.
Yeah, when I worked kind of administrative work at a nursing home, like healthcare kind of stuff, if a person came in and asked if someone was still living there, I couldn't say yes or no. Just because I couldn't compromise identity, basically.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like they would have to find out through them their name kind of deal.
Yeah, and like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's like it could be a brother of whoever is living there.
Yeah,
and,
it's odd.
They're just wondering, does X person still live
So
here?
if someone showed up and they said, if they didn't know that, let's say the guy's name's Bob, if they weren't sure if Bob lived there and they showed up and they were like, I'm here to see Bob, I could say, yeah, he's in room 3. But if they showed up and they said, is Bob still here? And he was, I couldn't say, yeah, he's in room 3.
Interesting. So that kind of like builds in a safety net of like, you kind of have to know this person, and if you don't,
yeah, or at least give me the impression that you do know them. I mean, then this is just like technicalities of it. I mean, obviously, it doesn't all work out, but
privacy, and like
HIPAA
at like at my job, if someone calls in wondering about a taxpayer, before I can answer any kind of questions regarding like the status of returns or like technical details about anything within their account, we have to check and see if they have what's called a power of attorney. And so, like, they could ask me something as simple as like, have you guys received our check for the third quarter estimated payment? And I have to see if they're affiliated with the company on a legal basis before I can like give out this private info. And so it's like, there's a big wide range of what's considered privacy. And
yeah, and
I'm
social media only blends it all, makes it, not blends it, it's like the opposite of that actually. It makes it more chaotic. Like,
well, yeah, like social media is kind of a weird one because I feel like we're almost giving up our private lives in exchange for likes.
Yeah, and in exchange for short-term, superficial, positive affirmations.
Yeah, big time.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's like, well, I went out of town and had a great weekend with the girlfriend this weekend. We went camping. Here's a picture that kind of encompasses all of that. Well, I could, just, keep that to myself and kind of feel joy from it and file it away under whatever part of my brain that goes into. Or you can do that and maybe tarnish it a little bit by exposing it to the outside world and putting it on Instagram.
Yeah. See,
and it's, I don't know, I hear a lot of people have different opinions about it.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I definitely don't like to think I take social media too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's more of just like a collection of things I think are cool.
I'm with you there.
Like I post a picture of me with someone because I want to remember it, kind of deal.
No, I'm with
that's
you
just kind of what you do. It's like scrapbooks aren't a thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then it gets into all the stuff we just talked about. Is if you sign up for Instagram and you think you're just making a collection of cool things, but then the company has the collection of all the things you've looked up, the collection of all the things you've liked,
collection of all the places you've been. Like you put a location on every picture, and they can kind of like draw with pinpoints, like the radius of where you like to go.
Well, not even that. If you you don't even have to put the location, and they know where you are because you signed up and like
enable location services.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and I don't know. I've been thinking about it a little bit lately because I was at the gym this week doing some kettlebells, and this lady walked into the room. I was the only one in there at the time, and they have like one bench press area, like a cable system set up, a bunch of like medicine balls. It's like a room kind of meant for like plyometric exercises, like there's box jumps and stuff like that.
That's my stuff right there.
Bunch of bands you can do work with, and there's a heavy bag hanging in the corner, and there's two like heavy bags that have water in the bottom of them, so you can kind of move them around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was in there doing kettlebells and kind of messing around with one of the bags, and this lady came in, and I was not paying any attention to her because I don't pay attention to other people when I'm there. And
you're a normal person.
And I kind of like wasn't sure if she was like singing along or like I can't hear anything because I have my headphones in, and so I unplug it and she's talking to me like, "But how long have you been here? You gonna be here a while?" And I'm like kind of caught off guard, like just got into working the kettlebells a little bit. I'll probably be here for a while. Why? And she goes, "Well, I was hoping to hit the heavy bag, and I like to do that in private."
That is so stupid.
And so I kind of like, I don't know, I was breathing hard, dripping sweat, and then it's like, all right, well, I could
threw me off, maybe.
I could just turn around and go back to what I was doing, but instead I was like, well, I noticed you have some like boxing gloves, MMA glove type things in her bag, and I was like, well, if you want to move this heavy bag over, like I'll use half the gym, you can use the other half. And she's like, no, it's fine. I don't like to use that one. I like to use the one that's permanently located in the corner anyway. And I was like, okay, well, how about I just stay over here and you stay over there, and then it'll be like you're in private. And she kind of like curmudgeonly agreed to
that's odd
to be there. And it's like, okay, well, we're in like a public place that we both play to use.
I was gonna say it's a public gym,
so like I'm going to be here a while. But it seemed weird to me that, like, that's something that she would want to do in private. Like, and I had a lot of thoughts kind of about, like, why she might not want other people to see her hitting a heavy bag.
Yeah, probably because she shouldn't be hitting the heavy bag.
She looked like, I mean, I wasn't watching much, but, you know, walking around, grabbing stuff. The bag was moving good. You could hear the chains. Like, she was hitting it good. It wasn't like she, like, was just throwing shit at it and seeing what would stick. Like,
she's got to own that then, man.
I know. So, and then that got me thinking, like, well, does she have a right to, like, want to use this room privately? Or is that something that, like, has to work out for her, where it's like, oh, I got there, and luckily no one else was in there?
Yeah, I don't think she has a right to
I don't think she has a right to either, but it was like, I don't know, it just got me thinking about, like, what is private, what should be private, and what used to be private, kind of.
Yeah, another part of this whole privacy thing is facial ID. That's kind of just hit me in the head there. 'Cause, yeah, our faces are known, you know, by the exact whatever measurement you want to use, but our faces aren't even private anymore.
Yeah, I know. That's like, for some people, it's like a key now. Like, that's how you get into your phone.
Yeah, no, that's how you get into my phone for sure.
Really?
Face ID.
Yeah, see, I'm still on the thumbprint scanner. I'm not moved up yet. But
yeah, I got a Face ID.
But yeah, that's like, and then you hear about, like, that app that would make you old. Like, you take a picture and it turns you like 80 years old or whatever.
Yeah, I used that.
I did not, luckily. But and then you hear people, like, or you hear stuff coming out about how perhaps a Russian company owns it and is, like, in their terms and agreements may have some nefarious things they plan on doing with your face.
Yeah, that's
type
odd
stuff. And it's like, well, I just wanted to see, like, what I might look like if I was 85 instead of 22. And then boom, who knows what's going on with it. Like, it's not mine at this point anymore because I checked a box.
Yep, you checked that box and you scrolled it and it all worked out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just a weird thing, and I think it changes over time, both, like, what is private and what people consider should be private. Because, I mean, like, when I was younger, I, like, middle school and stuff, we would do, like, swimming in gym, and it was like, well, fuck that, I'm not showering. Like, that's weird.
Yeah.
You know, like, 7th or 8th grade, you're like, no way. Like, I don't want to.
I'm not changing.
Yeah, like, all this kind of stuff, like, or, like, just locker room etiquette in general kind of for me has changed a lot. Like, I used to work out there and then come home and shower. And now it's like, well, it's there. I'm going to work out, take a sauna, and then shower. And it's a locker room. That's what it's made for. So, like, what I used to consider something to be, like, really private now is just something I do without kind of thinking about it or batting an eyelash at.
Yeah. Do you think that the trend is eventually going to go kind of back towards, you know, celebrity being more private,
more reclusive?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, in this age of social media, it kind of seems like it'd be really hard to get away from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, like, you want to generate interest or, like, a following or whatever, and the only way it seems you can do that is by either commenting on things that are going on in the world or sharing what's going on in your life.
Yeah, I mean, you see that, like, you see it, what's the word, like, magnified for celebrities. The celebrity that is always taking us. Hey, what's up, you guys? I just tuned in to blah, blah, blah. I'm right here. I'm going to be
going
here.
Live.
But I think maybe someday that is going to be, like, the cliche thing to do kind of thing.
I could see that, where it'll go out of style eventually. Like,
because, man, eventually people are going to stop caring, you know? Maybe.
I'd like to think that, because, I mean, I don't think either of us really, like, cares too much about, like, what we post or what other people are posting.
Yeah,
it's kind of just like a fun, neat way to kind of chronologize.
Yeah, I'm trying to just post to get this podcast popping off.
You feel me? I want to get some.
If you guys could follow that shit, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, no, I want to get some more members going here, and that's where a lot of this posting about Discombobulated comes from. But, like, when I'm tweeting stuff from my personal account, it's kind of just like putting a pin in a day and being like, this is how I felt.
So do you think you cared more when you first got on Twitter?
I think I probably did, yeah.
So that's what I mean. I think people are going to get are going to be over this kind of thing. And
yeah, exactly.
I think that's why I think maybe the celebrity is going to turn it into the private again.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, because even like I just said, I went from like, I would change in gym class, but there was not a chance in hell. Like 8th or 9th grade me was going to shower in gym class. To now, like, every time I go to the gym, I'm showering there because I don't want to get in my car sweaty afterwards. And like, that was not many years it took for that. So, and that's just like some bozo guy at a gym. Like, these big ideas surrounding like cultural privacy, I think can change with the wind just like that, you know?
Yeah, man, privacy. That's right there is the concept of the week. If you guys that are listening have a concept that's kind of been tripping you up or making you feel frustrated or, you know, discombobulated.
Yeah, really kind of riles you up.
Whatever it may be, let us know and we'll try to talk about it. I mean,
we'll try to sort it out.
Feel free to, you know, tell us what you think about the concept. Let us know what you think about privacy. Is privacy even a thing anymore? Should you be allowed to have certain types of privacy? If so, where? Are you compromising your privacy by doing things you do every day as far as even logging into your phone? It's a wild thing, and I think the people that, you know, the original philosophers that came up with the concepts of like separations between church and state type of thing, they would be so, they could not imagine what's going on right now as far as privacy.
Unrecognizable. I'm willing.
Ooh, I just had a thought.
Hit me with it.
In some of my courses at the U of M, when we talk about privacy, we look at it through like a political lens and how, you know, when 9/11 happened, the U.S. government kind of was like, you have to give up your privacy because we need to fight terrorism.
Through things like the Patriot Act and things of that sort.
So if your government could up and just say, like, you don't have privacy anymore because we need to stop terrorists, you know, that's an interesting concept. And the political parties pretty much divide down the middle as far as that's concerned. Republicans don't mind. Actually, I guess it's not.
It's a weird one, right?
Yeah, it's not as black and white as that it's made it out to be, but generally, Republicans were more willing to give up their privacy for fighting terrorism than people on the left. And that actually is party lines, more willing to give up private matters to try to stop terrorists. It's an interesting
which is
concept.
Kind of a funny thing because a lot of those same people probably are like very in favor of private businesses running.
That's why when I was saying that out loud, I kind of stumbled on my words because I was saying it and then I was thinking about it. Like, am I saying is this right? But I knew I knew it was right.
It's weird. I think it just kind of holds a candle to like how convoluted of a concept privacy can be.
Yeah, like you're willing to give up your private information to stop terrorists, but you don't want men to marry men, even though that's totally their private life.
Yeah, right? Like what?
And then if we try to make that argument for the left, you're willing to give up your private information, but you're I guess I don't know an example. I was trying to think of one on the fly there, but
that's all right. It's a slippery thing to get a handle on, and I think you kind of see a lot of people drop the soap on this one pretty frequently because, like, I don't know, even like I think of rappers sometimes when I think of privacy. Like Currency is an example that comes to mind a lot of the time. Is he'll talk a lot about like he doesn't want to be seen in public doing certain things. He doesn't like take pictures of certain things. He won't videotape certain things because it's like private and what he's doing. He doesn't want anyone to know. And then you see other rappers who are like always on Instagram Live. They take a picture everywhere they go. Like they're always talking about where they're going to be, when they're going to be there kind of stuff. And like those are two people who are both doing the same thing, you know, trying to sell records / get streams. And they're carrying themselves completely different. And yet they both may be successful.
You also see rappers, we'll use that example. They start out as this public figure type of thing, and then once they get success and make their money, they go back to being totally private.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I want to have a life behind closed doors. And it's like, well, you got here by exposing the inner workings of your life to the world. So
it kind of shows how like superficial the whole concept is almost.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you could just kind of work with it or work against it to get short-term gain and then go back to your old ways. So yeah, do we have privacy or not? Not sure.
Yeah, let us know. We can maybe get a thread going, and you can tell us about some times your privacy was breached or someone was like being really weird about keeping something private that to you was not a big deal at all.
Yeah, that is another thing. Is even from like family to family, it's so different.
Yeah, for sure.
It's so different.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I'm wondering if it's about that time.
I think it's time.
Alrighty. Well, we're gonna try out a segment for you guys. We'd like to maybe have this be kind of recurring, but checking the watch. I think it's story time.
Yeah, so we're gonna rip out a story each week. We kind of just came up with the random theme. It's spooky season. Halloween's coming up, so I'm gonna go ahead.
These long, dark, cold days have kind of been making us start to think about spooky season, as Avery put it. And
all these thoughts about privacy and stuff. It's scary. And now that we're gonna get into the
some story time,
spooky season. Talk about ghosts. I feel like a ghost is the biggest breach of your privacy there ever can be.
Yeah, because I mean, like, let's say going to the bathroom is something you hold super private. Like, some specter can just some big their way right through the door, and then boom, you're in there.
John's been there the whole time,
lathering up with keels, and this thing's just talking in old English, and neither of you knows what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, and you can't even see the guy either.
Exactly,
but they can see you.
So yeah, so do you have any experience with the supernatural or paranormal?
Yeah, and this is all. I have a hard time. I don't even know what to believe, and I was younger when this stuff happened, and but it seemed so real, and it still kind of does. But I had
That's the best part about story time is it's like you can kind of transfer me back to this point in your life and how you were feeling, and then you can always re-examine it
for sure
once you tell it, but. We're hoping to kind of switch off a little bit, and this week Avery was telling me some spooky tales from beyond the crypt before we got going, and
all concepts.
I told him he should save it for the podcast because I don't think this is a story that can be kept private.
No. So I had someone in my life recently had purchased a house in a new neighborhood, and the two people that lived there both had feelings of this uneasiness, felt like they were being watched, and neither of them told each other, kind of thing.
Okay, and this was like upon moving in, they started feeling like that?
Yeah, and it was a new house, like newly built development.
Okay.
So, they purchased the house, and the houses were going up around them the entire time, type of deal. And they were both uneasy about certain things that would happen, and they had a dog and stuff like that, and when they finally talked about it, they both realized that they were kind of experiencing the same kind of things.
Okay.
And then once they kind of concluded that, more stuff started happening, which is weird. And personally, for me, I was there one time, and one of the owners of the house had left the house with their friend.
Okay.
And I was chilling in the basement with the other owner of the house and my brother. We were just watching TV. And it was kind of a rambler house, so you had the entryway and then a split staircase that went up and down.
Oh, okay.
So we were downstairs, and they were in the entryway, and they had left, shut the door, and shortly afterwards we heard, it sounds so crazy to say out loud, but we heard the same conversation they had just had upstairs really faintly, but they were gone. Like we heard a conversation, and no one was upstairs.
In the entryway?
In the entryway.
Ooh.
It was very odd.
That's strange.
And I was being told, like little things, because we were all like rattled as hell about this, because it was, a new house.
Did anyone go look eventually, or were you guys just like watching
I don't
TV?
even know. And another time, we left the house, and the owner had said to me, there was like a toy on the staircase that led upstairs, and he told me, I bet when we get back here, this is not going to be here. Toy. And it wasn't. When we got back, it was gone. It was moved up. It was not where it was.
Really?
And I can't make this stuff up. And I could actually start crying right now. That's how creepy this stuff is to me. And then another time, someone was working on their house for them, and this person is a non-believer, if you will, and he got so scared that he was painting the house, and he thought he had heard my little nephew talking. I'll just say it, my little nephew talking, and no one was there, and my grandpa was convinced that there was someone in the house with him, and he packed up all his shit and left. And this is like
mid-painting?
Yep, he had heard something in the hall, a little boy. He got up and left. Toys would always go off in the house. And these are like little kid toys that don't go off unless they're turned on type of thing. And they would just go haywire in the middle of the night. As I said, stuff would move. And the owners of the house talked to basically a psychic.
Okay.
And a psychic had told them there were 3 ghosts in the house. One was a little boy. One was an old man that was mad that they were building a development on the like sacred land, which is kind of a story you hear. It's like, you know, like being built on an Indian reservation,
like the plot to Poltergeist kind of.
Yeah,
theme.
And I forget the third. The third type of ghost that they described. But what's trippy about this is the psychic was in a different country, actually, like across the world. The psychic was in Australia.
Really?
And the owner of the house went through her mom to try to, because she was living in Australia at the time. And so the little boy was like the creepiest sounding thing ever. And that kind of makes sense why toys would go off.
Yeah, especially
a little boy maybe playing with toys, right? My uncle's dog would always stare in the corner and just bark.
Ooh.
Like someone was standing there.
And that's especially weird when the dogs get involved because,
yeah,
you know, they're rumored.
They're hyper aware of things too.
Yeah.
Like sounds and stuff.
Their senses are heightened compared to ours, and they supposedly have like a good ability to read people kind of thing. And I don't know if it's just in movies, but I've definitely heard for a long time that like dogs and babies, you know, have like a especially acute ability to sense things that are maybe paranormal or supernatural.
Yeah, and my one of the little kids that lived at the house would always say, "Where's Bobby? Where's Bobby?" And Bobby is, I think, at least how we interpreted it as Bobby is kind of an older name. Maybe that's the old man. And if you asked him, "Hey, where's Bobby?" he would say, "Under my bed, under my bed." That's pretty creepy. And also, this kind of ties
scary as hell.
This kind of ties everything together. We researched the kind of history of the land. And shortly before they moved in, if you remember, actually, I don't want to say the city, but basically a little boy had drowned to death in a pond across the street.
Oh, wow.
And he was around the age of maybe a ghost that would want to play with toys and be playful. Because they never felt kind of scared of the ghosts. They felt like the ghosts were almost playing around with them.
Interesting.
Like moving toys. And, you know, it wasn't like
threatening.
Demon. It wasn't that. But
that's
to
crazy.
Sum it all up, they left. They don't live in Minnesota anymore. They fucking left.
They hightailed it out.
Yeah.
Dang, it's crazy, dude. The hard thing with some of this stuff is I'll never be able to properly appreciate or even like fully understand what it was like for you to sit there and hear that conversation kind of going off softly in the entryway. Or
Me neither, and I can't even conceptualize it. I don't even know how to. I don't know if I maybe didn't hear it, but we all heard it.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
It's a weird thing, and it's like.
And I don't even really believe it either. As I'm saying it, I don't really believe it.
But, but I mean, it's like the thing with that kind of stuff too is like, regardless of whether or not it's real or like really happening to him, something's got to be going on to the point where it makes somebody move.
Well,
you know, you don't just like buy a house.
In the whole story the psychic told matched to the drowning so much.
That's crazy.
And we even went as far as to learn the name of the little boy that drowned, and we would try to like talk to him.
Really?
Like
hey, seance
hey,
kind of.
Like his name, like hey, let's say his name's Johnny. Hey Johnny, are you there?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing would ever happen, obviously, but we were like aware that it was just creepy stuff.
That's wild. Were you ever able to uncover anywhere where the name Bobby might have come from?
No.
Because at first I was really nervous that you were going to tell me that Bobby was the name of the poor kid who drowned nearby.
See,
and then
that's
the
the
I might
one.
have had to leave. But
that's the one thing that didn't add up.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my grandpa's name's Bob, so we don't know if it was kind of my cousin like playing around, like where's Bobby? But also, no one has ever called my grandpa Bobby. Never. We call him Bubba, not Bobby. So that was a made up. I mean, he didn't learn that from anyone.
Damn.
And then where's Bobby? Under my bed. That's from a fucking movie.
That's legit like nightmare fuel right there.
Oh, so scary. And I just, yeah, man, it was this weird feelings. And then the dog part was super creepy too.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine a dog standing in a corner for 10 minutes barking at the corner.
Yeah, I know. That's like
it's not normal.
I've got 2 dogs at my dad's house, and there's some inklings around the household that maybe there's some energy in there. I personally haven't had anything happen, but like my sister and step siblings and stepmom and a couple other people have like, I don't know, noticed or felt things. And the only thing I've seen that really kind of like makes any sort of hair stand up on me is my 2 dogs will sit at the top of the staircase going into the basement. And I haven't seen them do it for a while, but they used to just sit there with their 2 front paws like hanging over the front edge and just stare at either the light at the bottom of the stairs or just straight down the stairs. Like, not like look over there, decide there's nothing there, and then go about their day like they do when they think they see something outside. They would be sitting side by side, laying down, just looking down the stairs.
Yeah, like whatever was there didn't move and was actually there.
Or like wouldn't come up past them type business.
That's
you know?
Creepy. Yeah.
Like you don't know what it is they're doing. Like, does something smell funny down there? Do they think they see something? Like, there's all sorts of crazy kind of stories like that everybody, maybe not everybody has, but a lot of people can kind of relate to stuff like that because it really only takes one.
Yeah, I certainly don't have anything really beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of people that have heard like weird sounds in their house, like footsteps.
Yeah.
It's odd.
It is weird. Or like if a door shuts.
That's creepy.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah, or the classic, like the TV goes static or something. That's
yeah, dude.
Scary.
I don't know if I believe it because he was kind of a shyster, but someone we went to school with when I was friends with him when we were younger, his grandma used to live with them, and she passed away. And she had a very specific news channel that she would watch religiously. Like, she wouldn't watch any of the other ones. She would only watch this one thing. And when she passed away, he, like, got to move into her room.
Okay.
And he had his TV in there and, like, Xbox and everything all set up. And he would go from, like, HDMI 1, like, playing Xbox at night, turn it off, go to sleep, and then wake up in the middle of the night. The TV would be on, switched to cable, and watching her favorite news channel. And, like, just kind of shit like that where it's like, either you're lying to me to gain nothing but attention, or it really happened. And
yeah, and I can't, these stories I tell, I really can't confirm or deny them, which is the weird part.
That's the hard part about them is, like, they're very experience-based. You know, that like there's no, I don't know, you see videos on YouTube where it's like, ghost captured, saving man from bus.
There's entire like shows that are based off like actual bullshit about it, but
number 7 on this week's top 10 ghosts caught on film.
Ghost ride skateboard downhill.
And it's like,
it's like, well, actually what happened there is gravity, and when you set a skateboard down on a hill, it goes down.
Look at this kid swinging on the park. It's like, well, if you...
Swinging.
Well, the trees are also blowing in the wind, so it's not crazy to think the swing might also swing in the wind. It's in the name, but there is stuff that you see and hear about where you're just like, I can't explain it.
What sold it to me was when my grandpa got involved, because he is not
kind of
no
nonsense.
Not the type to believe, and then, if you think you hear something, you think you're being watched, and then you pack up all your stuff and you don't go back to the house.
Yeah, that doesn't mean it was like, ooh, that was kind of weird. Like, I'll think about that later. It's like, all right, I'm done here.
He left and then stopped working at the house.
Yeah.
He stopped helping out because spooky.
Yeah, that's crazy. That stuff's kind of weird, and the only like legit firsthand experience I've ever had with something that was like unexplainable was I was helping my father do a tile job one time, and we were leaving this house after the sun had gone down, and we like packed up for the night, and it was pretty tucked away from like the main road, kind of not backwoods but kind of out in the country. And off of the main road you like turn onto the street their house is on, and before you get to their driveway you have to like go over a little kind of like berm with train tracks that run across it.
Okay.
And when we were leaving, we were driving kind of through this twisting road, and we both kind of looked at each other, and we're looking out the windshield of the car, and finally my dad looked at me and goes, "Do you see that?" And I was like, yeah, I do. There was this light that we couldn't really... There's nothing that would have made sense for it to have been there.
Yeah.
And so he was like...
It was like super bright.
Like a extremely bright light.
Like a brightness you don't see normally.
It wasn't a street light. Like,
yeah. That's so
it was
freaking
super
scary.
bright, right? And so...
I got goosebumps, man.
So me and him had both seen it and kind of just like got a little weird about what we were talking about. And we were getting closer to like the eventual train tracks. And he looked at me and was like, "I just need to ask, do you see that?" And that kind of like made it real for me, because I was like...
like when a parent gets involved in it?
Yeah, and he's not just like, "Oh, I wonder what that is." He was like, "Do you see that?" And I told him like, yeah.
When an elder is involved in it, that's when it gets really creepy, because you tend to think of your parents or your grandparents, your uncle or whoever it may be as like more rational, like more experienced, maybe more logical than you. And then when they're like, oh.
Yeah. So
like,
we looked at each other. I told him, "Yes, I see it too. Do you think it could be a train?" Because we were like coming up towards the hill that the train tracks were on. And he was like, "I hope so," kind of sentiment.
Yeah.
And so we were winding around and went down the hill before you come up to the train tracks, and kind of lost sight like through the horizon of where we thought this thing was. And it seemed like it would be right by the train tracks, so we were like, okay, when we get up there, we'll look down and hopefully see something. Went down the hill, came around the corner, and started coming up the berm. Nothing. Light was gone.
So it looked like a headlight? Or was it like a spotlight?
It was like...
Or none of the above?
More like I guess most like a spotlight, but it wasn't directionalized. Like a spotlight, you can kind of see is pointing north.
Yeah.
And if it's not pointing at you, it's not bright. You just
kind
of see it.
Maybe it was a cop.
Well, so like we weren't sure what it could be, but we both agreed that it seemed like it was along the train tracks. And so when we got up there, we like stopped, put it in park, got out, and we're looking around.
And there's nothing there.
And not only was there nothing there, but like it kind of spooked us. So we turned around, went back to like leaving the place, to be like, okay, let's see if we can see the light again.
Yeah.
And maybe
from the same angle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Damn.
Yeah, that was kind of a quiet
trying to
couple
rationalize it, because that reminds me of like back in the day when we used to do, hood rat stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Cops might show up and then they would have a spotlight and
they
were trying to spot you in the field, whatever you may be doing in that field.
Under
That's up for interpretation, but
yeah.
You see the spotlight and it moves around and it's super bright.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't make any sense for this case, because if you would have like went back to, you said you went back and checked it. That should still be there. You would have seen a
and like
car or anything.
Or
something.
if it was like a street light over the railroad tracks.
The light doesn't move.
Exactly. And so that was a wild one.
That is crazy.
And I don't know, that may not be ghost. That may be...
Sounds more alien-esque.
More alien-esque, but...
That's a topic for another day, maybe.
Most definitely.
I don't have any alien stuff, but I know that I've definitely read about.
I've heard some pretty riveting ones.
A lot of people have very similar circumstances too, which is the creepy part about all that.
Yeah, that is always what makes it the most spooky or like eerie, is when there's
very similar.
Like similarities that you can't really just account to coincidence.
Crazy shite, man.
Yeah, but hopefully that was spooky.
I thought it was spooky.
I got a little... I mean, regardless of what you think about it, like, you don't just move.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know, I don't really like the basement. To move a house, you either have to, like, get a new job. Parents have to, like, decide the marriage isn't working. Like, the house burns down, something like that. People don't just, like, buy a house
in a brand new development in a brand new house too.
Yeah, like it's
next to a really, really nice school type of thing too.
Yeah, you don't just like abandon stuff like that because the birds are looking at you funny when you go out to your car. Like it takes
the birds. That'd be pretty creepy too.
That might force me out.
If you had like 100 crows,
I was gonna say
staring at you.
If there's a murder of crows hanging outside my house, just like getting ready to squawk at me.
Yeah, I'm grabbing a toaster and jumping right in the bath. But yeah, folks, I think Soy and I are going to leave you off on that one for this episode.
On this chilly, spooky, dark October night.
Yeah, you spooky bastards. We will see you guys for episode 4. As always, we appreciate you guys for listening. Be on the lookout for the website launch. And as I said, thank you very much.
Trying to secure that domain this evening. Hopefully that's on the agenda. And then... we are looking for concepts to discuss. We want to do like a concept every week.
So we're working on concept of the week, story of the week, and then the OPE of the week. For, Midwestern listeners, you all know what an OPE is.
Oh, yeah. I think I probably hit about 3 OPEs today.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, as always, we appreciate it. Thanks for listening. I'm Avery Kearney. It's my boy Sawyer Reed. Appreciate you, Soy.
Likewise, my guy. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Have a nice night, folks.